Oh, Stephen, the book is called Me and the Table. Does it sum up just how much the sport has meant to you throughout your life?
Yeah, very much so. I came up with the title because basically throughout my whole life, whatever was happening away from the table, I always was happiest, and when it was just me and the table, just potting balls. Even now, I don't play a lot. Certainly don't practice like I used to, but when I'm just a little room table, just potting balls, making breaks, clearing up, it's kind of like my sort of happy place.
You say a happy place. Was it almost an obsession?
Oh, very much so, very much so. That my whole, my obsession in the beginning was just playing snooker, getting better, trying to be like my idols, like Jimmy White and Steve Davis and that things. Obsessed with copying them, being able to play their shots. And then when I turned professional, my obsession with winning and trying to, overtake Steve Davis's records, that became an obsession. So yeah, I went into it, 100%.
What can we say?
104.
Absolutely incredible. Hold your breath. This is it. Fantastic performance. I've never seen anything like it in all my career.
You dominated the sport in the 90s. Did you feel invincible at times?
Very much so, yeah. I mean, I was #1 in the world for 8 years in the spin. I won the World Championship 5 years on the spin. I almost took winning there for granted. One year I remember saying to my wife, can you pack that jacket for me? I want to wear that for the fight after party, after the final. I hadn't even gone down and played the first round yet.
You were that confident?
I was that confident. It was like even now, people say to me, where's your pipe and slippers underneath the table at the Crucible? It's like, even now I think it's my venue. Even now, and I'm just working there, commentating and stuff. But even now, I think this is where I belong.
Wow. We'll get to the commentary later in the interview, but let's go back a bit. You got your first snooker table at the age of 12. You made your first century break at the age of 13. You were really taking to the sport very early, but it was to the detriment of your school studies, that's right? Oh,
very much so. Not in the very beginning, but certainly when I got to sort of 14, 15, homework went out the window. And fortunately for me, my parents didn't really say, right, no snooker, you've got to do your schoolwork. I think early on they seen it as something that I was going to do for the rest of my life, and also from the age of 13 I was earning money. I think I won my first under 16 tournament. I got 100 quid, which at 13 was just like amazing. I gave 50 quid to my mum to put in a bank account, and I bought a watch with other 50. So that was me starting sort of looking after myself. But yes, school, I left school, a few months earlier than I should have, but because basically it was a waste of time.
Did you feel you were developing that business brain at even such an early age?
Maybe not a business brain, certainly a spending brain. I learned that very quickly. It was nice to have money in your pocket. I learned that very quickly. But as I say, I virtually supported myself from then on. Bought my, buying clothes for myself, and it was great. You would win a pro-am snooker tournament, you'd get maybe 1,500 quid in your pocket, and it's just like, this is great.
You're talking about the balance here between school and practicing. In terms of how significant your parents were, you played in a number of amateur events throughout the UK. You touch upon that in your book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much so. My dad and I would get in a train sometimes on a Friday night down to King's Cross. There'd be some pro-am in Essex. Invariably in the beginning, I'd get beaten the first round, straight back to King's Cross again, and the train back. It was tough, but that was how you learned. You had to play these guys. You had to get streetwise in snooker, and it certainly hardened me up and toughened my game.
His ambition is to win the World Championship. His ambition is to become #1, and honestly, I don't see anything to stop him.
I guess one man that perhaps helped you become streetwise was Ian Doyle. At the age of 16, I think, you turned professional. Ian Doyle took you on. Just how big an influence was he on your career?
Ian is definitely the biggest influence in my life. He turned my sort of life upside down. Even just after I turned professional, I was still in a club in Broxburn, sort of having a game with my mates, having a bit of a laugh, not really treating it treating it professionally. He came on a secret sort of recce and just to see what I was up to. And from then on, he says, look, if I'm going to look after you, if I'm going to take care of everything else off the table, finance your career, you're going to work for me, son. That was his thing. You're going to work. So then I left Broxburn, went to Stirling, and from then started a regime of sort of 6 or 7 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that was the influence that sort of changed my life. But then it was good because it was like Ian and I against the world sort of thing, against the regime. Steve Davis and Barry Hearn was the team that was dominating snooker, and we wanted to take over from that.
Was he quite a formidable guy, and you saying he caught you out there, and you were saying that was probably the best thing that could have happened to you? Oh,
without a doubt. I mean, if I didn't, my dad, although my dad had massive faith in me that I would be world champion, even not practicing. Whether that would happen, I don't know. But that work ethic that Ian really drummed into me was certainly one of the secrets of my success.
Sure, you became the sport's most successful player ever, but you didn't enjoy that massive popularity or popular appeal like some other players, like Alex Higgins or Jimmy White. Did that ever bother you?
No, never.
Why not?
I like winning too much, and I sort of took over from Steve Davis as the sort of hated is maybe a strong word, but certainly the one that the fans, as you say, Jimmy White and Alex Higgins were the favourites, and I'd go out and play Jimmy White in the final of the World Championship, the Crucible, and he'd have 80-90% of the support. But I used to really spur me on. I liked that. I liked being, as I say, the hated one, the one that had to prove everyone wrong.
In your book, you refer to your single-mindedness in an incident with John Higgins when he won the championship in 1998. Tell us what exactly happened there. John
Higgins won his first world title, and I used to practice with John a lot. In Stirling, he used to be managed by Ian, and then he made a decision to leave the team, which I thought was the right decision. He was always going to be number 2 to me, and I respected him that he wanted to be his own man. But we were still great friends, and he won the World Championship, and I didn't call him to congratulate him. Because basically, that was mine. And if anyone else won it, even if it was my brother won it, I would be like, I'd hate it. So that was just my... looking back, it's harsh, but that was just my selfishness, and I wanted to win anything and everything. And if someone else won the World Championship, I hated it. I obviously rectified it later and stuff. But probably a bit over the top, but that was just me.
But if you didn't have that single-mindedness back then, you would believe you wouldn't be as successful as you'd become.
Yeah, absolutely. That was me. I was so greedy for success. I wanted to win everything. And if anyone else, especially the World Championship, that was the Crucible. Winning the Crucible was everything. And if anyone else won there, I didn't like it at all.
How much do you think you shaped snooker?
I think I changed the way it was played. I think the way it's played by the majority of players now, the aggressiveness of getting the pack open early, win the frame in one visit as soon as possible. Not safety, no safety play, or very little safety play. Just going for everything. Even if it was the craziest shot ever, if I went for it and missed it, it didn't matter because my opponent would think next day, well, if he's going to go for that, he's going to go for everything. My safety better be perfect. So you put them on the back foot, and that's the way. I think I changed the game. My break building was more aggressive. It was. You look at the players that are playing now. That's the way snooker's played by most of the players, certainly the top players.
And you're talking about the aggressive style of your play. How important was it that you got that message across to your opponent mentally to make them weaker?
Yeah, as I say, you've got to put them on the back foot. You've got to, players that base their game on sort of safety play, forcing the mistake out of you. If it put more pressure on their safety play, they just wouldn't know what you were going to do next because basically the slightest sight of a pot, I'd go for it. It just the thing. Oh, this is not the way snooker's supposed to be played. Willie Thorne said once that professionals shouldn't go for the shots that I go for. I changed it.
So you retired in 2012 when your game turned for the worse after it was affected by the yips. What happened there?
Basically, sort of the last 10, 12 years of my career, 12 years before the end, certain shots I would play that I wasn't able to strike the cue ball the way I wanted to. I would decelerate on shots instead of accelerating through the cue. So that shot, I thought, well, that didn't feel nice. I don't like that, how that felt. but you kind of sort of ignore it, and then it would happen again, and you think there's definitely something wrong here. You know, it's a psychological thing that transmits to being a physical thing. You know, with your right arm, your cueing arm, and then it just got more and more shots as my career went on. You know, again, obviously it's a psychological thing, and perhaps you know, not winning as much and going down the rankings a little bit affects everything. But in the end, it got to the stage where I was refusing shots, which isn't me. As we just said, I want to go for everything. Positionally, I was playing the wrong shot because I was playing shots to avoid playing shots that I knew I couldn't play properly. So yeah, I mean, in the end, I was completely handicapped by this in playing top snooker.
Away from the game, you've had issues to deal with in your private life, such as the breakup of your marriage. How difficult was it to write about that in this book?
Very difficult, and I thought long and hard of it, whether I should. But basically, the idea of the book when I started it was just to tell the story of my life. Basically, that's what I wanted to do, and that's what hopefully has come out.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching this match tonight, especially Kyron Wilson. He's been one of the form players this season. Since
you retired from playing professionally, you've turned to the commentary box. Have you found that transition?
I enjoy it a lot. It's not as good as playing. You know, when you're in the crucible, the final night of the final, you don't want to be in that auditorium with a microphone in your hand. You want to be in there with a cue playing. So
well, you already had your jacket lined up before you played.
I know. So I'll always miss that. I'll always miss being in, you know, in the pit, as it were, playing, you know, top competitive snooker. I'll always miss that. But you know, talking about it and commentating it is a second best. I'm still involved. I mean, snooker is basically all I know. So I can't play, at least I can talk about it.
Stephen, it's been fascinating talking to you. Thanks very much for speaking to
You're very
Scotland
welcome.
tonight.
Cheers, thank you.
Cheers.